2, opening the meeting at 7 o'clock p.m. The purpose of this meeting is to hear and decide applications before the Board of Appeals, which have been brought pursuant to the bylaw of the town of Harwich and the Massachusetts Zoning Enabling Act. I'll ask our members to identify themselves, please.
Chris Murphy.
James Armstrong.
Al Donahue.
Dave Ryer,
Ryan Sullivan.
Dave Nunley.
Joe Beasley.
and our secretary. Okay, we are being taped. That's what that fellow over there in the, behind the big monitor is doing, and then it gets put up onto YouTube. Probably within a couple of days, it'll be up there if you need to look back at anything that happened. And with that, we'll have our clerk call our first case.
All right, case number 2022-00. This is a continued case from 1/21, January 26 of 22. Joseph T. Burrell, trustee, and Karen A. Burrell, trustee of 38 Pleasant Road Realty Trust, through their agent, attorney Andrew Singer, have applied for a special permit to add a second floor onto a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. The application pursued the code of the town of Harwich, 325-54, as set forth in MGL Chapter 40A, Section 6. The property is located at 38 Pleasant Road, map 4, parcel W1-2A in the RH1 zoning district.
Okay, we will have voting on this case. Mr. Murphy, Mr. Armstrong, Mr. Donahue, Mr. Sullivan, and Mr. Nunnally. All right, Attorney Singer, if you could introduce yourself for the record, please.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. For the record, Andrew Singer, attorney in Dennisport, here on behalf of the applicants this evening. As was read in the legal notice, this is a request to construct a second floor over a portion of the house, the front portion of the house. On the plans, the site plan, it's the heavy dark line around the front of the house is just showing where the second floor addition would go. This is a pre-existing non-conforming lot, and it's a pre-existing non-conforming house. The proposal, however, will be set back further from the street than the pre-existing non-conforming front setback, and it will be set back, because of the way the house is angled on the property, it's going to be set back further from the pre-existing non-conforming left and right side setback. So there are no further encroachments into a setback of the house by adding the second floor. In addition, there's no change of use, no change of traffic. There is a request, they're going from 3 to 4 bedrooms. They will be going before the Board of Health for that, just to confirm on the septic system. Building height for the front part of the house will be going from 17 to 25 feet, still conforming. Stormwater will be maintained and contained on site. There's going to be no negative impact on water supply or the environment. Parking is adequate. The addition is modest in size, we suggest, for the neighborhood, and will fit in with the character of the neighborhood. And we don't believe there'll be any adverse or negative impacts to, or nuisance hazard or congestion to the neighborhood or the community. With that, if you have any questions on the plans or the request, be happy to answer them, and we appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I have no questions.
Jamie?
No questions.
Al?
Ditto, no questions.
I have no questions. I'm not going to vote on the case, but I'll just point out that the project will intensify one or more existing nonconformities, not create any new nonconformity, and in my opinion, will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structure. Accordingly, the project will meet the requirements for the issuance of a special permit by the board under the bylaw and under the Gale and the Diedrich cases.
I agree with the chairman, and I have no questions.
Dave?
No questions.
No questions.
Joe? Okay, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this application? Hearing no one, I'll move to close the public hearing. Could I have a second?
So moved.
Sure.
Second, Mr. Donahue. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is now closed. Discussion by the board.
pretty straightforward, and I think it's
Yeah.
in line.
Okay. I do think we probably need the construction time restriction and the new general
Yes.
condition.
Yeah, it's a very busy area in the summertime.
It's tight. Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion in the case.
All right, case number 2022-00. Case was continued from January 26th of 22. Joseph T. Farrell, trustee, and Karen A. Farrell, trustee of 38 Pleasant Realty Trust, through their agent, Andrew Singer, have been granted a special permit. I move the board grant the special permit. In this case, having found the applicant meets the requirements of the bylaw, Gale case, and deeper cases, as proposed, the project will intensify, as the chair stated, one or more, should intensify a pre-existing non-conforming, will not create a new non-conforming, and will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structures. All work shall be performed in accordance with the plans submitted with the application. The special permit is granted subject to the following conditions. There will be no demolition, exterior construction, on new landscaping during the period of June 30 to Labor Day in any year. During the life of the, well, you can't put
No,
the vehicles on the property, that's
Yeah,
for sure.
that's the third one, yes.
It is the conditions of this approval, that a violation of the terms and conditions of the special permit may be enforced as a violation of the Harwich zoning bylaws pursuant to MGL Chapter 40A, Section 7, and the Harwich zoning bylaw, as these may be amended from time to time.
Could I have a second on the motion? Okay, second from Brian Sullivan. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, special permit granted unanimously, Attorney Singer.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Yo. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This next case, I'm a neighbor of the next case, so I'd like to remove myself.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to sit down in the audience then. Okay, Al, on to the next case.
Case number 2022-14. Benjamin and Jacqueline Bourne, care of James M. Norcross Esquire, 156 Pole Road, Chatham, Mass. Owners of the property located at 968 Route 28, Assessors Map 30, Parcel 34, W2. Applicant seeks a variance to construct a front porch addition within the required front yard setbacks pursuant to the Harwich bylaws 325-52 and MGL chapters 48, section 10.
Okay, we will have voting on this case. Wait a minute. Sorry, for the record, Mr. Armstrong has recused himself. He's a neighbor. We'll have voting, Mr. Murphy, Mr. Donahue, myself, Mr. Sullivan, and Mr. Beasley at the end of the table. So if you could introduce yourself, sir, and who's at table with you, and then present your case, please.
Certainly. Good evening. James Norcross, representing Benjamin and Jacqueline Bourne. Here with me this evening is Benjamin Bourne, one of the owners of the property, as well as in the audience, Chris Billick, who's the builder for the project. As you heard from the description, the Bournes own the property at 968 Route 28. The request before you tonight is a variance to construct a covered porch within the setback on the south side of the property to Route 28. The Bournes bought the property in the fall of 2020. It was owned in the same family for a number of years. The Swansons, going back to at least 1948. And so the Bournes, after purchasing the property, the structures needed a lot of attention. So the Bournes worked with an architect, Peter McDonald, and with Chris Billick, the builder, to come up with some renovations, modifications, and upgrades to the buildings on the property. As part of their review in terms of the design process, the Bournes discovered that historically, going back to at least, Mr. Bourne will fill you on the details, but going back many, many years, the property used to have a covered porch on the front of the structure. And so that became a feature that they thought not only would be a nice design aspect to the building in terms of the front facade as you look at it from Route 28, but also would be nice in terms of restoring the property to some of its historic character from a visual aspect. And so at this point, Mr. Bourne is going to fill in the board in terms of his discovery of the front porch and how that process played out. And Mr. Chairman, while he's doing that, may I pass out a couple photographs?
Sure. Thanks, everyone. Actually, to correct the record, it's actually Borney, unlike the bridge. The E is long, but that's all right. My wife doesn't correct people anymore. Yeah, so look, we feel very fortunate to have found this house, to have found a house in Harwich. And it wasn't our intention to find an old house and to restore it, but when we saw this one and the location and the things we were looking for, it seemed like a no-brainer. And so once we bought it, I realized it needed quite a bit of work to bring it up to modern standards at the very least. We felt we owed it to the house to try to, restore it respectfully and to bring it back to the character that it originally had. And we think that the house is important. I think it's technically not on the historic register of Harwich, but we think it's important for these reasons. It was built in 1815 for Joseph Nickerson, obviously of the Nickersons that are notable in the area. It was within feet of burning down from the 1899 Great Fire. The owner at the time literally rode his bike from Pleasant Lake and arrived in time to throw buckets of water from cisterns that were on the property to douse the fire. And almost all the other houses in the region of the fire burned to the ground. And then later, as Jamie said, it was in the 40s when the Swansons took ownership. It was the Highline Inn. And later in the 70s and 80s, it was a bed and breakfast called the House on the Hill. We believe it's one of, if not the oldest, federal-style house in South Harwich. And it sort of always bothered me that once we bought it, I said, I'm not an architect or anything, but I know a little bit about styles, and I said, this is clearly a federal-style house, but it's missing some characteristics. And we just assumed it was what it was. But then in communicating with the Swanson that we bought it from, she has, I think, a treasure trove of pictures and information, and so she sent me these pictures from 40s and 50s that Jamie just handed out. And I said, wow, that's what was missing, the twin chimneys and the porch in the front, which are classic federal-style characteristics. So putting the chimneys back isn't in the cards, but we thought the porch added a lot to the front, and there's obviously the variance issue, but it wasn't, it's like a small chunk, and so we felt like it was worth pursuing to see if we could put that back on. And I think that really is all. And the only other thing is that we think is important, I guess, is that coming west on 28 from Chatham, I think it's the first residence that you see once you cross over the border in Harwich. So we feel proud that it's, people coming this way will see it first. That's all.
Thank you, Ben. And just to clarify one point for the board, originally a building permit application was submitted for the additional renovations and for the porch. And when that was submitted, the building department correctly pointed out that the porch was actually located within the setback, and so that would require a variance. For time constraints, the Borneys decided we're gonna go ahead with the rest of the renovation work to get that underway, because they're gonna do that no matter what, and that we'd file a variance application afterwards to see if this board would be amenable to allowing the porch to get constructed. So if you went out there today and saw the work, that's why, and none of that work is part of the application today. It's just the construction of the front porch.
And I assume that's true of this set of documents,
I'm sorry?
that most of these relate to.
They
work
do, yeah, one
other
set,
than
so we,
porch.
that's correct. Yep.
Do we have one that shows what you're doing on the porch itself?
Yeah, I can't find that.
Yeah, that's,
Yes. If you look,
It wasn't in the packet,
it wasn't.
at least on my packet, so I
I didn't
apologize.
find it, so.
Okay, we have,
I know this, it's, the drawing that it's on, it's very difficult to see.
I'm trying to see, I saw it today when I was looking through the documentation. Proposed foundation plan, I think it's
There's two here in the end that have
two at the end, did you?
What's it the designated,
proposed roof
Oh, here you go.
plan
like A8, A7, what is it?
A8, A8.1.
It's also on A5 and A6, if you look at that. You can see A5 is looking at it from the northeast, so it's the side profile. And then A6 is looking at it from the south, so that's the front profile from 28. I don't know, do all the members have those?
Oh, wait a minute, okay,
Okay, yeah, I see this
Sorry,
one,
it's
okay, no,
little
so that's at an
approximate.
A6, is that correct?
A5 and A6.
Okay,
We probably could have streamlined it for you, I apologize on that, but then you would have wondered where the other numbers were, so. But those show the,
all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Apologize, I didn't recognize it before.
no problem at all. It's,
Okay, no, I did see those, but I thought you'd have one just for the,
oh, no, sorry, we just submitted
I was
the
looking
plans.
for. Okay,
Yep.
it's not necessary. Go ahead with your presentation, I'm sorry.
No. So going through a little bit of the zoning information for the property, it's located in the CH1 zoning district. It contains over 49,000 square feet, where 40,000 square feet is required, and has 211 feet of frontage, where 150 feet is required. The existing structures on the property currently meet all dimensional setbacks, and the property is conforming as to both site and building coverage. Again, the proposal before you tonight is just to construct the covered porch on the south side of the house facing 28. As a result of this proposed addition, the house at the very southeast corner would be set back 20.44 feet from Route 28, where a 25-foot setback is required. Currently, the setback is 25.15 feet, so it's about a 4.5-foot further encroachment into the setback to Route 28. As you heard, a variance is required because this is a new nonconformity under the area regulations of the Harwich zoning bylaw. And so there are three criteria that we have to review when you make findings on under Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 10. The first are that owing to circumstances relating to the soil condition, shape, or topography of the land or structures and affecting such land or structures on the building, or excuse me, on the property, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it is located. In this instance, the shape of the lot has unique circumstances and characteristics, as the eastern side of the lot, if you review the site plan, is significantly shorter than the rest of the property. It's about, I'd say, 30 feet shorter on the the eastern border as it is on the western border. This shape appears to have largely been the result of the layout of Route 28 that was done over the course of the early part of the first half of the 20th century. Additionally, the shape of the house is unique as it does not sit perpendicular to Route 28 and is sited significantly off-center. As you see, it's sort of tweaked to the left so that that southeast corner protrudes closer to the roadway than the rest of the structure. The second finding is that a literal enforcement of the bylaw would create a substantial hardship, financial or otherwise. We believe it would create a hardship to the applicants. The addition of the covered porch is an important part of the design for the structure, and the applicants believe results in a building that is more aesthetically pleasing in a very visible section of Route 28 in Harwich. Additionally, the inability to add the covered porch reduces the applicant's ability to restore the historic features of this building, which Mr. Borney touched upon in some detail, which I think is a benefit not only to the Borneys, but also to the town of Harwich in general. The third criteria and finding is that the variance will not substantially harm the public good or derogate from the purpose of the Harwich bylaw. I would suggest to you the variance in this case will not harm from the public good or derogate from the purpose of the bylaw. A street setback is intended to maintain appropriate streetscape and prevent massing. In this case, the covered porch is certainly not adding any mass to the structure. The modest encroachment of approximately 4 feet does not create a situation where the house looks uncharacteristic to the neighborhood or would loom over the street. In fact, the covered porch helps to reduce massing by breaking up the current two-story structure as seen from Route 28, which has the flat facade on the front. Finally, the addition of the covered porch, I'd suggest to you, really improves the streetscape as it results in a structure with an improved design that invokes the historic characteristics for this property and for this building. So just to conclude briefly, while not part of your criteria necessarily, from a high level, I think, there's a lot of properties you see in homes that are raised and rebuilt. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think we have a situation here where a property owner is willing to renovate a historic structure, and in fact is looking to upgrade it to bring it back to historic characteristics that were at that property before. And so if there was a way, and I think the board can find that we meet the criteria of a variance, I think it is a real benefit to the property and to this visible section of South Harwich. So with that, Mr. Chairman, is our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
Your last point's a good one. Actually, I thought about myself. With enough of these types of buildings being demolished, to let rot in place so they can be demolished, it's nice to see someone fixing something up. It would clearly give a better, on the plus side, it would clearly give a better improvement on the view, the design would look more authentic, so all that's positive. As far as the hardship, it seems to me that originally, before they took the right-of-way, it probably had plenty. So in essence, the town created that hardship by taking some property away.
The state, when they did the
State,
highway, we believe,
state,
is what
okay.
reduced the size there.
And there's also some steps that, I think they've been removed now, but on the plan it showed, in a picture it showed some front steps that probably were at least that distance out or close to that.
Right.
That, in essence, that already existed before you took those.
Yeah, they don't count it for coverage because it's
Sure,
not
I
covered,
understand.
of course, but you're right. Yeah, your point is well taken.
So it all seems reasonable due to some of the issues that, many years ago, but the issues that were forced upon the property by the state. So, no other questions.
Yeah?
I have to agree with Chris. It's a lovely piece of property. It's certainly gonna be a benefit from what you're doing to it for the town. It appears as though the state, though, when they put in 28, took some of the property in the front, which would have satisfied the zoning bylaw at the time, but 1815 is not when it started. However,
You weren't on the board then?
no, I
Okay.
wasn't. 6 months later. But in any event, thank you very much. In any event, I think it's a wonderful project.
As you look at the deck, I guess going from east to west, how much of it actually is gonna be in the 25-foot setback? How many feet as you do your run towards the west? Approximately.
I don't know the answer to that. Chris, are you?
I think it goes like midway to the front door,
Okay, so about half of the,
half of it.
Okay, and how long is the deck, the run of it? What's half? How many feet?
Is there a floor plan?
yes. Here, Chris, if you want to take a look, we might as well
34 and a half.
bring the expert in. Instead of me giving a wrong number.
And
34, yeah, just over 34, 34 and a half.
That's the entire length, so
Correct.
about half of that would be within the setback, or,
That's correct.
okay, so about 17 feet, okay. And the deck, you want to put it here to sort of face Route 28?
Correct.
Is that the rationale, as opposed to some other part of the house?
That's where we think it looks best from a design standpoint, and that's where it was
That's where
previously.
the original was? in
Yep,
that
so you see
neighborhood.
from the photos, you get it right
Okay.
on, it located on the front.
That's all I have. Brian?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, obviously, to clarify, on the plan, on the site plan, it shows the porch as a deck, correct? That's what we're talking about, just so I,
Right, the surveyor listed as deck.
yeah, I just wanted, okay. Now, just, first of all, I agree with everything that was said so far, and when the state took the property, you know, on the 28, how many feet did they actually take? Do you have any idea?
We have a plan from, it's a bit confusing, there's a plan from 1927 that shows 200-some feet, and then prior to that, in 1903, they took more. So originally it was I guess a county way that you can see. I'm happy to pass up the plan.
Right, but width-wise, heading towards the house, at that corner.
It's not exact shown on the plan.
Roughly 2 feet, 5 feet?
It's 7, I think, for what we see on
Okay,
the plan.
so about 7 feet of the property may have been lost to Route 28.
That was the 1927 taking. I think before that more was taken in terms of 1903 when they did the initial layout.
Okay, so, what you're representing is approximately 7 feet or so, and that range of the property was taken by the state.
Right.
Okay, which is far more than the 4 feet that you're looking for. That's one thing I was looking for.
Sure.
Okay. It seems like would you say that your construction that you're doing as far as width, is gonna is size-wise, is gonna be approximately what was there originally in the house? From the picture, it looks that way.
From the porch, do you think it's consistent?
Yeah, and that's how the architect had drawn it,
Right, but,
width-wise.
yeah, from looking at that picture,
Right.
and that was very helpful, that answered questions 2 through 4 for me, so I just wanted to know. But, from that picture, you feel that this construction is approximating what you had back, historically what was there, okay. You know, given the location, and it's up on a hill, and the proximity next to Abuka's, which seems to be just as close, I have no further questions, and I think it's a good opportunity and a good historic front.
Dave?
No questions, but thank you for what you're doing, Mr. Bowman.
Joe?
Great project, no questions.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this petition? Hearing no one, I'll move to close the public hearing. Could I have a second? Second from Joe. Okay, all in favor, closing the public hearing? Okay, public hearing is closed. Discussion by the board. I think the taking by the state really affected the shape of the lot by narrowing it. So I think they do have a valid argument for a variance. It's a dimensional variance, which the courts say we can have a minimal finding of hardship. And I think, given what they're doing architecturally, preserving this house, I think if we don't let them put the porch on it, there's enough hardships there, I think, given the minor infraction on a dimensional variance. I think the circumstances are pretty unique because of the state takings for Route 28. So I feel their position is justified. There's gonna be no substantial detriment to the public good or disruption from the intent or purpose of the bylaw based upon a grant of a variance in this particular case. So I would support it. Anybody else?
Well, I agree, and I think it, not only is it not a detriment, I think it's enhancement, and particularly where, you know, somewhere in the 7-foot range was taken by the state, and they're looking for a 4 foot or so retrieval here. I think it's fine. I think it
Yeah,
meets
absolutely.
I think it meets
Yeah,
the idea of a variance.
it's not a self-inflicted hardship. The state did a
No,
taking, so
right, yeah.
the prior people in the title had nothing to do with it. I do think we only need the parking on site. I mean, there's plenty of room up there. I saw all your construction vehicles up there the other day when I went by, so that and our general.
Plenty of room.
I was just gonna comment with regard to Mr. Sullivan's comment about me.
Just don't slap them. You know we're on the YouTube. Don't get up and slap them,
My
please.
memory serves me, that was a cart path that went through there. It was a pushing of water.
You
All right.
the cart path, huh? Not the trail?
I will take a motion in this case.
The motion in the case is, case number 2022-14, Benjamin and Jacqueline Borney, Counsel for James M. Norcross Esquire, 156 Crow Road, Chatham. Owners of the property located at 968 Route 28, map 34, parcel W2. The applicant has been granted a variance to construct a front porch addition within the required front yard setback pursuant to the Howard zoning bylaw 325-52 and MGL chapter 40A, section 10. There is no substantial detriment to the public good or granting of this variance. That is, granting will not nullify, substantially derogate from the intent and purpose of the bylaw. All work shall be performed in accordance with the plans submitted in this application, rather. The property is in a congested area, however, there will be no well, no, this doesn't count, this one here
No,
either.
just-
You can get everything on that property.
Yes.
And then some. During the life of the project, all construction vehicles shall be parked on the property and not on any public street, even though the street's not the same one that was there originally. It is a condition of this approval that the violation in terms of the condition of this variance and may be enforced as a violation of the Howard zoning bylaw pursuant to MGL chapter 48, section 7, and the Howard zoning bylaw as these may be amended from time to time.
Do I have a second on that motion, please? Second from Mr. Murphy. Any discussion by the board? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion? Aye? All right, motion granted, variance granted unanimously. Good luck with your project. Thank you very much.
Good presentation. Do you need any of these plans back?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Attorney Norquist, I'm only gonna stamp in the site plan and the two drawings, the A5 and A6.
Sure, that makes sense.
None of these,
Yeah, none of
rest of them really apply.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
What do you look? 1,000.
So
Like
you're
the next down. Warehouse is there.
Okay, we can call the next case, if you would please.
Case number 2022-15, Weechmere Harbor Real Estate LLC, through the attorney, Andrew L. Singer, Esquire. Dennisport, the owner of the property is located at 23 Snow Inn Road, Unit 12, Beach Club, assessors map M8, parcel P2-12, in RH3 and RL zoning district. The applicant seeks to amend the special permit decision of 2020-45 as previously amended to construct a pergola trellis over the portion of the existing patio pursuant to the Howard zoning bylaw 325-54, section 8, section 7, and Howard 54B and MGL chapter 40A, section 6.
Okay, we will have voting on this case. Mr. Murphy, Mr. Armstrong, Mr. Donahue, Mr. Sullivan, and Mr. Nunnally. And Attorney Singer, once more, if you could please introduce yourself for the record and then present your petition.
Yes, good evening. For the record, Andrew Singer, attorney in Dennisport. Here with me on behalf of Weechmere this evening in the audience is Bill Ganchert. Dave McNevich from Coastal Engineering is here as well. This, given the level of review that you had on the Beach Club over the last couple of years, this is a very minor request. But just to point out, on the site plan, it's the black, that's all we could show really, was just a black square. That's where the pergola would go. It's over an existing deck, so it doesn't change anything from a planning board perspective for site plan review. We are asking to amend the special permit to allow this pergola with this change of plans. We also gave you some elevations. Again, it's hard to see on the elevations because you see the gazebo that's there. That's approved and built. It's just this pergola to the south end of it. There's going to be no change in conforming building coverage as part of this. There's no change in building height. The setbacks are conforming. Pre-existing nonconformities on the site are amenities and site coverages, but this doesn't change them at all. The use is pre-existing nonconforming as the resort, but that's not changing either. So there are no changes, there are no practical changes to any of the zoning dimensional aspects that you look at. The Conservation Commission has approved it. I saw the comments from the Health Department. This actually confirmed it with coastal engineering. This doesn't impact sewage flow at all, because it's just the pergola. It's not changing what's under it on the deck already. So there's no impact to the on-site wastewater treatment facility as part of the proposal. We believe it not only will not be substantially more detrimental, but it won't be detrimental at all. It'll be a nice addition to the beach club itself. And for those reasons, we'd ask you to respectfully make the findings and grant amendment of the special permit in 2020-45 as previously amended. If you have questions for any of us, we'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Singer. Chris?
Just one question on the height of the pergola. Compared, there are other buildings that are also tall buildings. How does it compare to those? Is it taller, is it shorter than existing?
On the site plan, the pergola to the top looks to be under 12 feet. So it's this part right here, if you look at the elevations.
Yep.
So it's less than half the height of the octagon gazebo it's next to.
Okay. All right, I have no further questions.
Jamie?
No questions, thanks.
Al?
No questions.
I have no questions. Brian?
Just minor, you mentioned everything's in the setbacks, and what is a setback at that location? You mentioned it, so I don't see anything written down.
Yeah, no, I knew they were conforming because we're like hundreds of feet away in all directions.
We are, okay, I was looking, so this.
It's on the table.
It is on the table?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, there it is. Yeah, so we're over 400 feet on the frontage, almost 250 feet on the,
Thank
and then,
you.
yeah, very, very far.
that's it for me.
Dave?
No questions.
Joe?
No questions.
Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to this application? Hearing no one, I'll move to close the public hearing. Can I have a second, please? Second, Mr. Nunnally. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is closed. I think the only condition we need is that the conditions in decision 2020-45 will remain in effect.
Okay.
Because this is an amendment to the existing special permit.
I agree.
Further amendment.
I agree, yes.
Okay, I will entertain a motion in the case.
All right, case number 2022-15, Reachmere Harbor Realty LLC, to the attorney Andrew L. Singer, Esquire, from Dennisport, Mass., owner of the property located at 23 Snow Inn Road, Unit 12, Beach Club, Assessors Map, Map 8, Parcel P2-12 in RH3-RL zoning district. The applicant has been given a special permit,
No, amendment.
amendment to a special permit. The decision of 2025-45 as previously amended to construct a pergola and trellis over the portion of the existing patio pursuant to the Harwich zoning bylaws 325-54A, 7, and 54B in the Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6. Yeah, all right. With regard to, the permit is granted subject to the following conditions. The conditions are that it will be consistent with the conditions that were stated during the 2025-45 hearing. Let's see. It is a condition of this approval that a violation of the terms and conditions of the special permit may be enforced as a violation of the Harwich zoning bylaw pursuant to MGL Chapter 48, Section 7, and the Harwich zoning bylaw, as these may be amended from time to time.
Could I have a second on the motion, please? Second by Mr. Murphy. Any discussion on the motion?
I just have a question for Mr. Singer, unrelated to this particular project. My question is this: Myrtle Beach, which is adjacent to the property, at one point there was 3 to 4 parking spaces that had been set aside for the public. Are those parking spaces still available?
There actually had been conversation about setting aside parking spaces many, many years ago. That was never actually implemented through various permitting, so I don't believe there are any.
Okay,
I thought that'd been agreement, that's all.
any discussion on
It was
the motion?
proposed at one point. It was.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye, okay, amendment granted unanimously.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your
Okay,
time.
Attorney Singer. Okay. Attorney Singer, could you please ask Attorney Crowell to come on in? Thank you.
Evening.
Attorney
Right,
Crowell,
right.
welcome.
You've been talking with the butter in the hallway.
Okay.
He'll be in a minute, and I'll let you know how we want to proceed.
In the meantime, could you give us some plans we can read, please?
I just happen to have some,
Yeah.
and a magnifying glass if you need it.
I was hoping we wouldn't need that. All right,
Because-
while you're doing that, let's call the case. Why don't you call the case off?
Case number 2022-16, Cherie Mayat Brazizis. How do I pronounce that last name?
Brazos.
Brazos. Attorney William D. Crowe Esquire, located in Harwichport, Mass. The owner of the property located at 53 Freeman Street, Assessors map 23, parcel R1. The applicant seeks
Thank you.
special permit or in the alternative, a variance to raise and replace a non-conforming single-family dwelling pursuant to the Harwich zoning bylaws, 32552, section A, 54A rather, and Mass General Law, chapter 48, section 6 and 10.
Okay, we will have voting on this case, Mr. Murphy, Mr. Armstrong, Mr. Donahue, me, and Mr. Sullivan.
Mr. Ryer.
Joe Ryer,
Donahue.
Murphy,
Armstrong.
Sullivan, Armstrong, yes, the 5 regular members.
If I may, just for the record, there has been, I recall, 2.
If I can interrupt, I don't want to open the hearing yet.
Okay.
You know, you just read it, but I don't know how we're going to proceed yet.
Oh, okay.
It's,
Well, how about we still don't have
And I
a
want to give you
readable,
the copies of the plans that you requested.
we still don't have a readable site plan, do we?
It's a little bit better.
Oh, okay.
You can read the setbacks a little bit easier.
Thank you.
I tried, and I had the surveyor and the designer
Okay,
email
thank
me
you.
new ones.
Gotta get better glasses.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience. And I'm Attorney William Crowell from Harwich Port, and I have seated with me Sherry Brazis. And she and her husband are the owners of the property at 53 Freeman Street in Harwich Port. And as Mr. Donahue read, they're seeking to demolish and replace the pre-existing non-conforming single-family residence as shown on the certified plot plan and the building plans that were submitted with the petition. And then I got involved after the petition was submitted, and I submitted a narrative, and we adjusted the plans to make the site coverage conforming, so we'd not be asking for a variance from the site coverage. And we did that by reducing the size of the driveway as shown on the plan. So, Mr. Donahue, you had asked something about the correspondence.
Yes.
So and I asked you to wait for me, so thank you for waiting. And I know that, my point was simply that I know that there is a 4-page memorandum that you received from the Price family who are here this evening, and that's who we've been talking with for the last 3/4 of an hour in the hallway. But I prefer I be able, if I may, Mr. Chairman, make my presentation first and not deal with the abutters letter first, so that the petitioner gets to put her best foot forward.
Sure.
Of course.
Thank you. So what we did with what the petitioner is seeking to do, and as I mentioned in my narrative, is that the northerly setback would go from 14.1 to 14.0 with the new house, so it would be 1/10 of a foot closer to that northerly lot line. However, with regard to Freeman Street, it would be pulling that house back basically 3 feet from, I'm sorry, I said 3 feet, I meant 9 feet, from 3 feet to 12 feet. So it's pulling it back, making it better, more conforming by 9 feet on Freeman Street, recognizing that that is a tight intersection there. So she's pulling it back there, and then it's basically the same with regard to Hoyt Road. So if you looked at an overall,
Wait, excuse me. Couple in the back, I have trouble hearing, so if you'd like to talk, if you could go outside, please. If you're gonna sit here, you really need to listen. Thank you. Go ahead, Attorney.
Thank you.
Crowell.
so my client did an overlay, and basically the house is on the same footprint. It'll be to a greater height, but under the 30-foot limit, the zoning limit. So it would be a 2.5-story house. And I have a picture to show you in a moment of what it would look like. But that picture is the same as on the handout here. And I've given a copy of these larger plans to the Prices as well, as we've been talking. So with regard to setbacks, she's making the situation, the petitioners are making the situation better because they're pulling it back from Freeman Street. And where it's a pre-existing non-conforming situation, if she did nothing, the house sits there and it's still that close to Freeman Street. So the renovations mean it would get better, not get worse, as far as setbacks, but she doesn't, as you know, she does not have to pull it back to 25 feet from both streets because she's pre-existing non-conforming. And we scale down the driveway to keep the site coverage below the 30% maximum. So we're at 29.9. But as you know, there's no requirement in our bylaw that you have a driveway. You don't have to have a certain size parking area, a certain size driveway. You can just park on your grass. So if you have material in your driveway, crushed shells, pea stone, bluestone, asphalt, then that becomes site coverage. But if you don't, and it's just grass, then it's not site coverage. So if you cut down the impervious material of the driveway, then you're cutting down your site coverage, and that's what she did to meet the 30% maximum. So that was intentional so that we didn't have to deal with a variance that was called for in the building commissioner's referral letter to this board, so that we would remain a special permit case. With regard to the building coverage was already non-conforming at 22%, 15% max. We're reducing that almost 2% from 22% to 20.1% as set forth in my narrative. So we're making that better. It's more conforming, double negative, less non-conforming. It's becoming better. As far as the height or the bulk of the mass of the house, it's going up. Incidentally, Mr. Brazos is 6 feet 5 inches tall and needs taller ceilings, and there are 3 children. So they would like to have the 2.5 stories as shown on the building plans that have been submitted. So we're increasing the habitable space by going up. It's increasing the habitable space within the 25-foot normally required setbacks from the streets and from the northerly sideline. Incidentally, we've been in contact with the northerly abutter, immediate abutter, and she has no issue with the petition. And put that in writing to me in an email.
What's the maximum height?
30 feet above mean grade, mean average grade.
Okay.
We will be below that, at or below that. So we're not asking for a variance from height. As far as the garage is concerned, it's unfortunate that the plan calls it an open-air cabana, which kind of suggests a swimming pool. This is not step one to a swimming pool. There's a cesspool, a septic system there, and the lot's too small. It's not gonna have a swimming pool. And it also suggests perhaps party time, and Mrs. Brazos indicated to me that she's got 3 children. They are a very tightly knit family. They might have their parents over, but this is not a summer party house. What they would like to do is open up 2 sides of the garage, and I'm gonna give you a picture to pass around, if I may. But you can see where it's open. You can pass it along.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that the walls of the garage, it would no longer be used as a garage, which is an accessory use. It would be a different accessory use for an outdoor patio and grill. And the sides towards the Price's house, that wall would remain, as you can see. And the wall facing north to the other abutter would remain. and they would open up the garage to have basically a covered patio. And then the patio would extend out into the yard somewhat. And they did that out of thinking that they want something that would be closer to their house to use as a grilling, because they grill a lot, grilling and cooking and being outdoors in the summer area, and it would be further away from the Price's property line that way. And their thinking was, and they put a lot of thought into this, is it would be more privacy for the Prices if they used the garage in this manner and not as a garage. And if they keep it as a garage, and then if they wanted to have a patio, sitting area, and grilling area, it would push all of that, because of the driveway and parking, it would push all of that closer to the Price's house, rather than this proposal with the garage keeps it further away from the Price's house and closer to the Brazos house. So they did put a lot of thought into the garage, adjusting the garage as proposed. They're not moving the garage, they're not demolishing, replacing it. It's just an accessory use that's morphing from a garage to a patio grilling use. So, all in all, we're dealing with, in my opinion, a Gale case situation of intensifying pre-existing nonconformities by putting more habitable space upward. And as you know, site coverage is not affected by going up. If you got the same footprint, the site coverage remains the same. You're not expanding the footprint. So it has no effect on site coverage, and we're remaining under the 30% site coverage requirement by adjusting the driveway. So we're in my opinion, a classic Gale case. We're intensifying an existing nonconformity on as far as the setbacks from the roads by going upward with the house, but less than 30 feet. Septic is not an issue. It's already been approved by the Board of Health, so that's not an issue. My client's already been to the Historic Commission. They've approved this house on a demolish and replace, so they're happy with it. So all in all, as you know, the Gale case and the case law looks at, will this be a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood, not just one abutter, but to the entire neighborhood? Will it devalue? Will it aesthetically not fit in? And with all due respect, the Prices demolished and replaced their house, which is the immediate abutter, 6 or 7 years ago. I've driven by. In my opinion, that's a pretty substantial house, and the height isn't that much different. I know there's not, they're telling me there's not second floor space, habitable space, but it still looks to be about the same height as this proposed house renovation that the Brazos are doing. So our argument is that there would be no substantial increase in noise, fumes, odors, traffic congestion, or the like. We've looked at different places where cars can park on the lot. On the north side, you might be able to squeeze 1 or 2 cars in there if you had company, and just say park there, not on the street, not over towards the Price house. And that it would not result in a substantial increase and no nuisance to the neighborhood by renovating this house, and it would not be a substantial detriment to the neighborhood. The key word, substantial, each time. Not a substantial increase, not a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood. Key word, entire, not just one neighbor. So, as this board has seen in the past, you look at will this have a substantial impact on the whole neighborhood? And I would say clearly not. It's another demolish and replace that we've done many, many times over the last 5 or 10 years with this board, with a special permit. So we're asking that you grant the special permit this evening. Thank you.
I guess I'm having trouble with the garage, why that would be a special permit. It seems to me under 324-54A7 small b, it's an other non-conforming structure that requires a variance. It's a detached garage, not part of the house. It's an other structure. And I mean, you can make your argument for the variance, but I don't see it succeeding.
Just let me check the bylaw, because I thought you might have an issue with it, Mr. Chairman. If you'd bear with me for just a moment. So, and I've talked with my client about that if she's altering the garage. Now, then you get into the Comstock case and all of that, and whether the garage is an accessory use and all of that we've been through for the last 2 or 3 years. So, are you suggesting that if she left the walls on the garage, that it would then not be an issue?
I think whatever you're gonna do, if you're going to alter or extend or reconstruct, you need a variance for the garage. My reading, the Comstock case, when it was done, it was still a garage. This is not a garage anymore.
I understand your point. I respectfully disagree that, because I think it's an accessory to a residential structure, whether it's attached or detached, but we've been round and round on that in the past. So if she left it as a garage, she could remove doors. She could certainly open the garage door and use it for the use that she's talking about. She just wouldn't be altering it, altering the structure.
I don't think it's a use issue. I think it's
Right.
gonna be whether it's an
Right.
alteration, extension, or reconstruction
Of the structure.
of the
Yeah.
structure. So I think that requires a variance.
Okay.
If you're
So,
gonna leave it as exists and open the door, I guess that's okay, but,
Right.
you know, you're gonna have basically a garage, if you wanna, spiff it up, you need a variance, in my opinion. I mean, there's 5 voting members. I'm only speaking for my position. The other concern
if I may, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I may just point out that she didn't ask for, specifically for renovating that garage. It was demolish and replace, the single-family residence. So I think it would be easy, you could still go forward with the petition for the special permit if we said, well, we're not going to do anything to the garage at this time.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but the special permit would go only to the house.
Right.
So the garage would sit there as the garage.
Understood.
Now, the other concern I had, and I think it was raised by the Prices, and I looked at the bylaw, it's the line of the site triangle issue. 325-17 really says, where is it here? Talks about the site triangle applying to any structure on a corner lot. And I don't think your drawing, at least on the new proposed condition, shows the line of sight. There's some, looks like triangles on the existing condition, but whether they're lines of sight or what they are, I don't really know. They're not,
Which paragraph are you referring to?
I can't read them without a microscope, so I don't know.
Oh, and the plans?
Yeah.
When you say triangle, is that the road?
Whether, yeah, there's something that talks about line of sight, and you have to have a certain distance under the bylaw, and I think you would have to have your surveyor put it on the site plan so we could see what's what.
So you're looking at 325 section 17, fences, walls, and other enclosures? Is that what you're referring to, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay.
It's down at the bottom. The first part talks about hedges and fences and growths, but the bottom, walls, but the bottom talks about on a corner lot, no structure.
But
Can
the
be
s-
in the sight line.
The structure's basically on the same footprint as the existing structure, so I don't think she has to meet any
Well-
requirements if she's already got a structure there.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if, once you knock it down and need to go back up, if you don't need a variance for that also. I don't know. I'm raising it as an issue for the board to
Yeah,
consider.
I would respectfully disagree, because you could make that argument about any of the setbacks at that point. You could say, well, they need to meet the 25-foot setback, and you don't when you're demolishing and replacing. You're pre-existing non-conforming. And Gale case says you can even make it worse, you can intensify it. So I don't think you can just separate out one aspect of the bylaw and say, well, you gotta meet that one, but you don't have to meet all the other ones.
Okay, all right, I've been looking for some input.
Okay.
I'm not convinced yet, I'm gonna think about it, and we'll go down to Mr. Murphy with questions.
Well, with the 325-17, it seems to me that a fence, a hedge, wall, or other enclosure, the other enclosures refer back to the type of enclosure as a fence, hedge, and wall. I wouldn't refer to that as a building.
Yeah, but you gotta go down to the end where it talks about the corner lot, the end of that paragraph.
If I understand it, they're talking about putting a fence up so you couldn't see around the fence.
Well, it says any structure. It says on a corner lot, no structure or vegetation shall be over 3 feet of height within the site triangle. And a building, a house is certainly a structure.
How is the site triangle determined?
Well, it talks about it, but it's something I think a surveyor would have to show us. It's not something I'm gonna come up with.
Probably depends on the lot as well.
Building commissioner did not raise that issue in his referral letter. And he's the zoning enforcement agent.
Okay, but I mean, we're entitled to raise issues at the board.
Understood,
On your
yeah.
application, so I appreciate the building commissioner might not have raised it. Anyway, I'll go back to Mr. Murphy. I've said what I have to say.
I guess I don't see anything that talks about anything other than, they talk about structures, but an enclosure refers to fence, hedge, wall. And I guess I would refer to it as a fence, putting some tall bushes up and replacing an existing structure. And actually, it's pushed back further, right, from the front.
Yes.
Okay, I'm raising it for
It would actually
discussion.
increase the safety
Right.
on that intersection.
And
As
we're
far
not,
as the other one on the variance on the shed, I'd have to agree with you on that.
Okay, anything else, Chris?
No, nothing else.
Jamie?
No questions, I agree with Mr. Murphy on both issues.
Okay. Al?
Just that the setback has been increased, so the site should not be an issue as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Brian?
Well, yeah, the setback got improved because, I forget what direction it is. Further down Freeman Street, that section of the house there has been eliminated, but the rest of the front of the house is the same setback, isn't it?
Here's a, I don't know if this is helpful, but this is at,
All right, thank you very much. What do you?
Be
would this
careful.
helpful?
that's a,
So this just shows the setbacks, so this is Freeman Street and this is Hoyt.
Right.
And so this was the old structure in the white, and this is what we're overlaying.
Yeah,
So
so
we're
the,
pushing,
so for the majority of the house, the setback is the same except for this corner here.
correct,
That's all I'm saying. So
Correct.
it's- So on any kind of sightline issue, it's the same as it is now pretty much regarding majority of the house.
right, and then this would be knocked down.
Yes, okay, I appreciate that.
right. And they're not putting up any new fence or wall.
No, I understand. Chairman, I understand what you're raising, but I think that regarding, and I think the sightline would be interesting to see, but where they're replacing pretty much the same footprint for the majority of the house. It wasn't a concern I had, but I would like to learn more about it. I've got two major concerns, and one, I appreciate perhaps the abutters on either side haven't raised, or I haven't heard yet, I haven't heard any objections from neighbors regarding the 2.5-story house, but, you know, looking on that neighborhood, a 2.5-story house, this is gonna be, I mean, it's different. I mean, I couldn't find another, anything in the immediate area above 2 stories in majority of the locations. The most seem to have 1.5 stories as your existing house is now. From looking at 6 Hoyt Street, I didn't get any kind of feeling the fact that the height of that house came even more close to a 30-foot height range. It may be because the peak was somewhat perhaps approached a 1.5-story house. I'm not saying that's not the case.
I wasn't, if I may, I wasn't suggesting it was 30 feet.
Okay.
I was suggesting comparing the proposed house to the existing Price house. It seemed to me that they were basically the same.
Yeah, looking at
About the
looking
same
at the Price House, or 6 Hoyt Street, you know, and looking over what this is gonna be, I didn't, height-wise, I don't see where they're gonna be comparable, all right? And I could be wrong, I don't know the exact height of 6 Hoyt Street, but it really, I think that corner is gonna stick out there. Now, so that to me, it kind of, I thought would have an impact on the neighborhood, that this would be substantially bigger. Actually, my main concern is parking. You're going from a 4-bedroom house, I believe it's 4 bedrooms, and not a 5, and
4.
It's a 4 to a 4.
right. Yeah, I thought you're going to, okay, everyone's talking about 5 here. I thought I read 5.
No, it's 4
Okay.
bedroom.
All right, so I got that wrong. Okay, all right. Okay. I'll go back and do my preparation a little bit. I could have sworn I read 5. Or maybe the Board of Health indicated 5 bedrooms in there. I was reading the Board of Health report, and they indicated it to the septic system. All right. I could have sworn I had read the 5, but thank you. But your current parking there is sufficient for, in that driveway, 3 cars, not including the garage. And now you're reducing it to 2 cars. And that corner, you can't park in the street there at all. And you know, I'd be, you know, how it, I realize it might be increasing a new nonconformity, but I'd be less concerned if you were able to, and we could agree upon it, adding to your parking space there, even though it increases the site coverage, because it's, again, it's just, you know, particularly if it's stone or shells and so forth, which are, you know, impervious, it will drain, because I can't imagine with 3 children, and your husband probably have cars, where people are gonna park, particularly if you have friends over, I mean, and guests, and there are no parking requirements in that area of Harwich that say you can't park in the street, except if a car's in the street and you can't pass on both sides with traffic, the police department's against that. You have to, even with a car parked in the street, cars have to pass both ways, they can't wait. And then particularly if you get further down, close to the intersection, the sight lines there, it's absolutely, it'd be a dangerous situation to either park on Freeman Street. So I'd be, I don't know what, I'd be less concerned about increasing the parking on the lot, so you can have 4 cars.
Well, my point is they can increase the parking, they just don't, they can't increase the impervious surface, they can park anywhere they want on their lot. They can park on the grass. They don't have to park in the street. There's no parking requirement, period.
There is also space along the side that you could put two cars behind the house if we needed to.
On the northerly side,
Right.
between the house and the
So if
14-foot
this is Freeman Street here, you could
setback
park
there.
here.
So your plans are gonna be to be parking on your grass and get it away from the sight line as far as the intersection, so people, they're not gonna do that.
And we could make that a condition if a special permit is granted by the board,
Yeah. I mean, they're,
that the family and the guests have to park on the property.
so even if you use a non-pervious material, it could be wrap, anything that will drain, that does increase the site coverage.
The definition in our bylaws says, site coverage includes driveways regardless of material, in the definition.
Okay.
So, crushed shells, pea stone, bluestone,
They all have drainage. So, okay,
but that's what the bylaw says.
I understand.
Then it becomes site coverage. So if you don't have that material, then it's not site coverage. You can park on your grass. You can have the two dirt troughs for the wheels. That's your driveway.
You know, the police department's fine if people all of a sudden have to park, I mean, you know, whether you're on a yard sale and that kind of thing, you park down, that's temporary. But I think you're gonna have a permanent situation of needing at least 3 cars, if not 4, you know, on your property.
They have two.
And you have 2 on the property now, you're showing for 2 parking spaces. But you're gonna need more than 2 on a regular basis.
So I do think that spot here, you could put it 2 additional cars along the back part here.
Okay, all right, and that's what you guys, and so you're not gonna construct anything on that area that would take away from the opportunity to park your car.
Correct.
Yeah, and regarding the garage, I had, in turning that into some sort of usable space with showing a covered situation here, I didn't know I want to inquire as to what the rules were for site, you know, setback to use that situation. And to me, it was initially probably too close, but that's what I thought. All right, but again, having you take care of understanding how you're gonna handle the parking going forward, I feel better about that. I still have, like to have the board further address what your thoughts are regarding the neighborhood and the 2.5 stories in that area.
David?
I have no question.
Joe?
Issues have been addressed.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this application? Yes, sir. Come up to the podium, please, and identify yourself.
First, I'd like to thank Mr. Chairman and the board for your
You
time.
gotta speak up a little bit, please.
Is this better?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
First, I'd like to thank Mr. Chairman and the board for your time. My name is Henry Price. I live at 6 Hoyt Road, and I'm a direct abutter to the proposed development. I presume, and I guess the answer is yes, that everyone has had a chance to review the letter that was submitted. Given the length and the specificity of the letter, I will try to be fairly brief. I've lived at 6 Hoyt Road for nearly 40 years, and in 2015, I built a new home. Given that, I think I have a pretty good feel for the neighborhood. I have no issues with the board approving a special permit so that the applicant can build a new home. I do, however, have concerns with the proposed development, which will result in the overdevelopment of this very small corner lot, which will be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. Firstly, I know some of this has been addressed, but I'd like to further address it, and it's been addressed in the letter. With regard to parking, it is grossly inadequate for the scale of the development being proposed, which will only accommodate 2 cars. As you all know, Hoyt Road and Freeman Street is a very busy intersection. And it has many documented accidents and safety issues. It's one of the few streets that I'm aware of that has 2 stop signs on the same side of the road. As been discussed, the applicant changed the site coverage from 38.9% to 29.9%, reducing the driveway's footprint instead of the patio and/or the house to avoid obtaining a variance at the expense of a safety issue. Secondly, the proposed open-air cabana and bar, which would utilize the existing garage, is virtually on the lot line and should be considered as a change of use from a static structure to a living and entertainment space. Given its location and intent, one could reasonably assume this would be a nuisance to abutters who quietly enjoy their existing outside spaces. Lastly, due to the size of the lot, massing and height of the house and associated impacts, the proposed house is inconsistent with the character of the community and the immediate neighborhood. Comments have been made both at the Historical Commission and tonight regarding the home that I live in. I think there are some, as stated in the letter, but worth repeating, there are some distinct differences. Firstly, it's a 1-story living house. Secondly, the roof line is gradual from the 1st story going up to the cupola, which is the highest point, which is well below 30 feet. So you only have a portion of the house with the height, which is a very small section. And lastly, and importantly, the house is very much set back from the road. We are very concerned with the 2.5 stories. It's on a very small lot. It's not just part of the house. It's going to be a 2-story house complete. And as you indicated, by the way, the parking is going from an existing 3-bedroom to a 4-bedroom, not from a 4 to a 5. But with regard to the height, it's going to be a 2.5-story for the entire, 2-story for the entire sides of where it abuts our property and all the way around, and then the 1/2-story. It's going to be very steep, which is going to have some impacts for that corner lot. Accordingly, we would ask the board to condition the special permit as follows. Limit the structure to 1.5 stories, either leave the garage as is or required to meet setback requirements, and lastly, require that there is sufficient parking due to the scale of the development. And that is it. I thank you. If there are any questions?
Well, what I'm gonna do, sir, if it's okay, I'm gonna have Attorney Crowell give a response. That's normally how we do these
Sure.
things. And then we'll see if anybody else wants to speak on the application.
Okay.
So Attorney Crowell, do you have a response to Mr. Price's comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to belabor the points. We've talked for 3/4 of an hour in the hallway with the Prices about all of this. And we've put out a couple of suggestions, and they've put out these 3 requirements that they have. At this time, my client's not willing to limit the house to 1.5 stories. She's suggested she could talk with her architect about maybe changing the roof line. And the board has made its thoughts clear about the garage. As far as parking, we've already talked about that, and my position is that there's no parking requirement. I don't think this board should get into that issue when there's no requirement of parking in our bylaw. So I question whether the board would have the authority to require certain parking spaces. I don't know if the board has the authority to say you cannot be more than 1.5 stories either. I think the board has to look at, is this a substantial, is the proposed structure a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood? That's a qualitative judgment that you have to make in your discretion, taking in all of the facts and circumstances of the case. So we've had good discussions with Mr. Price and his family member, and I understand how long he's been there. Mrs. Brazis and her family want to be good neighbors. The Prices have said that they want to be good neighbors also. So we're not trying to drive a wedge between neighbors here, but my clients bought the property and have certain rights to do what they want with their property. In this case, with the permission of the board, and as to whether they meet the requirements for a special permit. Go ahead.
For a 1.5-story house, can you
A
have
little louder, please.
Sorry, for a 1.5-story house, can you have an upstairs? Because I'm looking at the plans and I'm willing to talk to the architect to see if we can bring the roof lines down, but we have 3 children, so just wanted to do more bedrooms upstairs, but for a 1.5-story, excuse my ignorance, I'm not an architect, but can you have an upstairs with a 1.5-story home?
Yes.
You can.
I can't
Yeah.
comment.
You can have bedrooms.
You can do bedrooms up there.
So I have one question. Across Hoyt Road, right now, there's a 2-story building with a peak roof. It doesn't look that much taller than what you're proposing, actually.
Our architect actually had come down and looked at the areas, because we were looking to do an older farmhouse, and he did reference the neighborhood and tried to keep it similar with the same look and feel.
Because when you mentioned that it doesn't fit in, there's at least 2 homes within, if you stand in front of their house, there's at least 2 homes that are 2-story that I can see.
I didn't, I'm sorry, I guess I was not.
I mean, right across the street from
I
Hoyt,
wasn't being.
it's 2-story with, it's probably got a steeper, you have a steeper peak than this one. I don't think they could put an additional window up there, for instance.
I
but-
certainly can get rid of the top window. I just wanted that bedrooms with 3 children, just have
Sure,
bedrooms
I understand.
upstairs.
That one that Mr. Murphy's referring to, Ralph Long's old house, they've been working on that for like 2 or 3 years now. But I agree, that would appear to be similar in height to this. And then you've got the one across the street, which is actually, has some apartments in it, that is 2 full stories, I believe. That used to be the general store in the old days. The Union Store it was called.
Yeah, I think, considering the neighborhood, it's not just Hoyt. Their address is Freeman. You have to look up and down.
No,
there.
then I did.
Said-
One's on Freeman, one's on Hoyt.
And there's a lot of big houses right in that immediate area that are 2 stories or more,
Right.
so.
Bank Street there.
Personally, I don't have an issue with the height.
Bank Street,
However,
there's some big captain's houses that
There's
just
some-
had
Yeah,
substantial
there are major houses in
renovations
the
on things.
neighborhood. I do have an issue, though, Attorney Kroll, with 325, with, you're looking or overlooking 325-51B, which clearly gives the board the power to modify exterior features or appearances of structures. I'm not saying we're going to, but we certainly have the power to, and we certainly have, we can require off-street parking or other features beyond any minimum. So
I
the board
acknowledge
does
that,
have the
yeah.
power, a pretty broad power to put conditions on. So I just wanted to clarify that if we feel a condition is needed, and going to Brian's point, if we did approve a special permit, I would want a condition that the owner not allow any of the family members or guests to park on any public street or road. And they can put them wherever they want on the grass. I think that's a reasonable requirement, given that neighborhood and the line of sight issue. And I think in thinking about it, and listen to the other board members, I agree the line of sight issue would be subsumed with the other issues. It's not even an intensification, it's gonna be the same issue. So I think that I'm okay with handling as a special permit. The garage, no, I think that's clearly a variance. You can argue for variance. I don't see any way, given the layout of the property, that you can justify a variance. Sorry, I know what you want to do, but, maybe you could think of a, a tent structure where it's not gonna be a permanent structure. So,
May I have a moment to talk to my client?
yes.
Yeah, I couldn't read the plans, and when I saw the Board of Health thing regarding showing that they read it as 5 bedrooms, I went by,
Yeah, they must have made a mistake, yeah.
but I couldn't figure it out in the plans before I got here, what was 4, what was 5.
It may have been a room that could have been
Yeah.
repurposed or whatever. That's across the street.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
Before you go on, just throw this out. You can ask for a continuance if you'd like to look at things, speak with the prices again. I mean,
We-
just the guy sitting here, but doesn't sound like a good relationship, the way you're good. You're right next to each other. And I think the board would encourage you folks to,
I'm happy to do that.
back off and modify a little bit. We agree with you folks on the garage. That's pretty clear, I think, from what you've heard. But under the law, under this Gale case, if all they're doing is intensifying existing nonconformities, not making any new ones, they are entitled to a special permit unless there's a substantial detriment, as Attorney Crowell likes to add, to the entire neighborhood. Now, we understand you folks aren't happy, you're the abutters, but to my knowledge, we've gotten no other letters from any other neighbors opposing this project. And, yeah, it's gonna be a bigger house, but I don't think it's gonna detract from the value of your property. I think it's gonna enhance it. And I think that's the general way it goes in this town and all the towns in the Cape. We have people every month coming to us where they're gonna knock down a structure and build a much bigger one, and it's really just gonna enhance the value of the neighborhood. We're Nantucketizing, I think that was another Attorney Crowelism, the Cape, and it's true, and you see it in the newspapers. So I appreciate your concern. I think the board members all appreciate your concern. We can address the parking and require all parking on site, but I believe, and we'll hear from the other board members, I personally believe that they're entitled to a special permit for the house only. Garage, no, to me, that's a non-starter on a special permit, and I don't think they can meet the requirements for a variance. So with that said, Attorney
Okay.
Crowell.
Thank you.
Real quick, should we close the public hearing? I'm in the butter as well.
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance, we got off there. If there's anyone else in the public that would like to speak, please come to the podium and identify yourself.
Now
I assume it's Mrs. Price?
No, I'm Effie Zenos. I'm in a butter at 5 Hoyt Road.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't plan to speak tonight. Frankly, I was ignorant, and I came because I'm interested. I've been seeing, some changes being made on the corner, but I do want to speak up to let you know that there is another abutter here. I'm at 5 Hoyt Road for 29 years, and I support the Price's position. I am concerned about that it is a really tough corner. I didn't get to see the picture of the old versus the new on the, I guess, the west side, but That is a very dangerous corner. So I would hate to see any additional, shortening of view at that corner. It's scary. And the other thing is, you could probably go over to Bank Street and you'll find some two-story houses, but right in our little section, 2.5 stories is going to stand out, and I appreciate your comments about that. But I support the Price's position. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, but it,
I am happy to go back to the architect. I'm not stuck on the 2.5. I think architects sometimes go crazy by certain things, and I don't know elevations and such. I'm more than happy to go back. I don't want to take away from the character of the neighborhood at all. I just wanted bedrooms upstairs for my kids, to be honest. I'm happy to go back and look at that and continue the conversation so the neighbors feel better about that. For my own education point,
again,
though,
I'm not saying you have to.
Oh,
I'm
no,
just-
no.
It might not be a bad idea, but you,
I'm happy
Attorney
to-
Crowell ought to, decide that.
I'm happy to do that and proceed and just make everyone feel comfortable. I'm not drawn to that by any means. The one question I have just for educational purposes, the lot is pretty small, and so the variance for the garage, our intent was, we were trying to be mindful of neighbors to give a little more privacy and area for that. So that's just something that you could never, ever actually do.
I mean, I appreciate it's a small lot. You
Right.
can only do so much and you have to go up.
Right.
I understand that. But I guess I just hate to see,
Oh,
trouble
I
in the
don't want-
neighborhood
I
if
don't
we
want
could
that either.
somehow smooth it over.
I don't want that.
She's
either.
asking about the garage,
I was
Mr.
just
Chairman.
curious about the garage because I'm happy to go down. It was more the garage was just the intent was to have some outdoor space because a lot is so, and I didn't want to have to push our family across, right to the Price's side and have our grill and all that closer to their property. So we were like, oh, we could convert the garage and just kind of make it more. But is there no way you can do that if you go through variances?
I'm sorry, what do you want to do with it?
I just was curious, we were just thinking of it more for an outdoor living space for the garage conversion, so I understand that needs a variance, but is that something you could never even pursue?
Well, when you have a different board, they might see things differently, I
Oh,
suppose.
okay.
It's the law is the law, but people look at it quite differently.
Okay, I just didn't know from educational purposes.
So I'm not gonna say never,
It's a different legal standard that's much stricter
but
to me.
the requirement is the requirement, and some boards might say, yeah, we'll wink at it, and this board won't, so
I understand.
we,
So,
sorry.
Mr. Chairman, we have talked with the Prices about a possibility of continuance. I've talked with my client about the possibility of continuance to see if we can inch this closer, given that if we went to a vote tonight and if we were not successful, then we cannot come back to you within 2 years with a substantially similar project. So, my client's made it clear that she's willing to have the architect take a look at the height and the mass issue. So I think we're talking about a continuance, as we've discussed, for a month to next month's hearing. And if we can talk with the Prices and come up with a solution, then we could submit revised plans, and I think we'd still be within the scope, certainly, of what we asked for, because we'd be asking for less. So we wouldn't have to re-advertise, we wouldn't have to start over again.
I would prefer to re-advertise or we'll waive a refiling fee. But I'm skittish about not advertising on a continuance, especially given the open meeting violation we just had in town here. Yes,
I would need the paperwork by Thursday, Friday at noon in order for me to meet the deadline to advertise.
That's, you're talking about 2 days from now. That's what I'm concerned about. I don't recall re-advertising in general, as far as continuances are concerned.
why can't we just re-advertise using, where's my,
I can re-advertise with the.
what we already
What I
have,
already
and it
have.
would submit revised plans at the meeting, or prior to the meeting. But here we go, just re-advertise it, use it the same description, continued case.
I have no problem with that. it's physically impossible for us to
It's easy for
accomplish
me, 'cause that-
agreeing on new
that's
plans.
no work for me, that's a copy and paste issue that I can solve.
Can we do that, Alicia? Just,
Yeah.
yeah, why don't we do that? Even before that open meeting, we've been very careful about that.
Continue, is that all right with the prices?
Did you close the public hearing?
No, I haven't done anything yet. We're
Thank
still
you. Thank you for not closing it until,
trying
because
to
I was
see, well, we
toying
can't-
with the idea
continue
of a
the case.
straw vote and so forth.
We continue the case. We don't want to close the public hearing, I think. We'll leave that open and just make a motion for continuance to the next meeting. Case at 7 PM.
It might be productive to take a straw vote, just to get the board's feeling on if we reach some accommodation about the height of the house, the second floor issue, whether the board would see its way to granting a variance, a special permit, sorry.
Okay, let me just explain to the prices, when there's this kind of a situation where the board members are, expressing concerns and whatnot, we very often will give the applicant a straw vote, non-binding, and they can then, usually what they'll do is not ask for a real vote, they'll ask for a continuance so they can go back, modify the plans, talk with the neighbors, whatever, before they come back and then sort of roll the dice, they revised it, here it is, tonight we're gonna vote, meeting, the next meeting or the meeting after, whenever they're ready. So with that explanation, why don't we take a straw poll among the voting members? Chris, if we were gonna vote on this, and I'm assuming we put the condition on parking, because I think that we have to do. Special permit, house only, garage, we won't address. The garage just sits there as is. What would your inclination be?
I think it fits the requirements of the Gale case.
Jamie?
I agree, I'd vote in favor of it.
Al?
I'd vote in favor.
Yeah, I would vote in favor of it with the conditions. Brian?
With the conditions, I would be okay with.
Thank you.
All right, so that's the inclination. I'd still, though, prefer you to try to work it out with the neighbors to the extent you're able.
That's what we agreed to.
So I will move that case. It's been so long. Let's
Can I add
see.
a comment?
I'm sorry. Yes, Joe.
Consider doing dormers. You have the roof, it'll be a 1.5 story with dormers, which are pop outs that come off the roof.
On the side?
Yeah, that come out off the side of so like the roof goes down like this.
Yep.
They're pop outs that come out
So you
off
could
the
do dormers
side,
on
so
the
you can
sides?
kind of have light shining in.
Uh-huh,
Just something to consider. The architect will know how to do that, so.
okay, I'll talk to him.
Yeah,
Honestly,
like
I just
this.
wanted bedrooms upstairs, I really could
Yeah.
care less about the height.
Okay, I will move that case 2022-16, Sherry Maya Brazos, be continued until 7 PM on April, what's the date of our next meeting?
27.
April 23rd?
7.
27th, 2022. And I have a second on that motion, second from Chris Murphy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, so we will continue the case until 7 PM on April 27th. The public hearing is still open. We left it open, so you can come back and comment, and we'll go forward and see where we end up. So I thank you for your participation. I urge you neighbors to talk to the applicant and see if you can't come up with something that everybody is not maybe loving, but can live with. That's all I have for you. Thanks for coming out and hanging around for almost 2 hours here. We're just getting going. We hope we can go 2-3 hours.
Most fun you can have in March and Cape Cod.
Thank you very much.
Wait,
Appreciate it.
Attorney Kroll, when I brought up the 5 bedrooms, that was based upon the Board of Health letter.
It says 5 bedrooms?
Yes. And I couldn't read the plans to determine how many bedrooms you had. And the Board of Health was indicating they read it as a 5-bedroom application. And they were commenting about the septic system.
They approved it.
No, they did not. They said it's rated for 4. The system was built in
That letter I
'96.
haven't seen.
Right, and you can have this copy.
Does anyone want to buy a house?
All right, thank you.
So that's when I came up with the
Comment.
thought, it's 5
See you
bedrooms.
next month, yeah. Okay.
Unless I get the wrong property.
We still have 2 cases ahead of us. If you can call our next case, please, Alan.
All right, case number 2022-17. Maureen B. Clancy, trustee from Maureen Baxter Clancy Living Trust. Counselor William E. Kroll, Harwich Port, owner of the property is located at 37 Windermere Bluffs Road, assessors map 6B, parcel E1-38. The applicant seeks a special permit or the alternative variance for the addition or extension of a non-conforming single-family dwelling by addition of a porch pursuant to the Howard zoning bylaw 32554A and Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6 and 10.
Okay, Attorney Crowell, if you could introduce yourself for the record and who is here with you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney William Kroll from Harwich Port, and I have Maureen Clancy seated with me, who is hoping for a less arduous hearing.
Let's hope. We don't like 2 of those in a row.
And she is the trustee of her family trust that owns the property in question. And she's seeking a special permit.
My apologies.
All right, why don't we take a second, because I forgot to tell you who's voting. We'll have Mr. Murphy, Mr. Armstrong, Mr. Donahue, Chokey here, oh wait, Mr. Sullivan. And I guess Mr. Nunnally. Okay, I'm sorry for the interruption.
And hearing the ghost of Mr. Hedestedt with the Crowell comment a couple of times, Mr. Ryer. But Mr. Donahue got it right, it's Crowell, like the bird.
Could be Cromwell.
So the petitioner is seeking a special permit to extend the pre-existing non-conforming single-family residence by constructing a porch on the existing footprint of the patio as shown on the certified plot plan, proposed conditions plan by Moran Engineering, and on the building and elevation plans by TPC, Tom Carloni Architecture, that were submitted with the petition. There will be no change in the side setbacks or the setback from Windermere Bluff Road, and the setback from Seabreeze will be more than 25 feet, so it's conforming. The building coverage will still be below 30%, increasing a little bit to 27.6. The site coverage is presently non-conforming at 48.1, but will not change because they're putting the porch right on the existing patio. The patio is impervious material, so that's site coverage, and they're plopping this porch right on the patio. So it doesn't change there's no increase in the non-conforming site coverage, but because they are now building habitable space and more structure within the side setbacks of 7.4 feet on the north and 12.2 feet on the south, then they're intensifying the existing nonconformities of the existing house by extending it out onto the patio with the proposed porch. So we'll just keep it short and sweet. It's a it's actually a bylaw case. I don't think it's we don't have to go to the Gale case necessarily, it's just a bylaw case that, 325-54A2, B and C, we're building on the same footprint, and along the same line as an existing encroachment without increasing that encroachment. I think it's a straight special permit under our bylaw. We can always have Gale to justify it if we need safety valve in the background. But I think that clearly there would be no substantial increase in noise, odors, fumes, congestion, traffic, or the like. Wouldn't create a nuisance, there'd be no substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood. So we'd ask that you grant the special permit this evening.
Okay, Chris, any questions?
I have no questions.
Jamie?
No questions.
Al?
No question.
I have none. Brian?
No questions, I think project is fine.
David?
No questions.
Joe?
Questions?
Anyone in the audience want to speak to this application? No, hearing no one, I'll move to close the public hearing. Second from David. Wait, I can't, well, I guess I can move, even though I'm not voting. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, public hearing is closed. I'll take a motion in the case.
They haven't taken a vote yet.
Let's see, 17. Case number 2022-17, Maureen B. Clancy. So I can hear myself. Trustee of Maureen Baxter Clancy Living Trust. Attorney William G. Cole, Esquire, representing out of Howardsport. The owner of the property is located at 34 Windermere Bluffs Road.
37.
37 Windermere Bluffs Road. The board has issued a special permit for the addition of or extension of a non-conforming single-family dwelling in addition to the porch pursuant to the Howard's bylaws of section 325-54A and MDL chapter 40A, section 6 and 10.
Just 6.
Oh, excuse me, yes, that's a variance. Move that the board has granted a special permit. It meets the requirements of the Gale and Diedrich case. It is granted subject to the following conditions. That piece of property is in a pretty congested area. So there shall be no demolition, exterior construction on new landscaping during the period of June 30 through Labor Day of any year. During the, I don't know if this is gonna cover it. During the life of the project, all construction vehicles shall be parked on the property and not on any public street or road. It is a condition of this approval that a violation of the terms and conditions of the special permit may be enforced as a violation of a Harwich zoning bylaw pursuant to MGL Chapter 48, Section 7, and the Harwich zoning bylaw as these may be amended from time to time.
Could I have a second on that
A
motion?
quick question, is,
Yeah,
is it intended to have both conditions on that? I think
put them both on there.
You put them both on?
Yeah, well,
He
because
did.
it's a congested area.
Do we have enough room to park everybody on site? Because it's only a small project.
Yeah, it's just
Just
a,
a
Yeah,
porch.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
mean,
would eliminate the first condition, Al, if you want to amend your motion.
Thank you.
I'll amend my motion and eliminate the first condition, which has to do with there'll be no demolition, exterior construction on new landscaping during the period of June 30, Labor Day of any year that has been removed.
So that condition we deleted. Okay, a second on the motion, second from Chris Murphy. A discussion on the motion?
As long as you park everybody.
I think, I'm not gonna vote, but it clearly meets the requirements of the bylaw, as Attorney Kroll pointed out, and it meets the Gale case too, although we don't need to go there. Anybody else? Okay, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All right, special permit granted. Good luck with your project. Thanks for such
Thank
an
you.
easy petition.
Me too.
Case number 2022-18, 16 Bank Street LLC. Attorney William D. Kroll Esquire, representing 466, Harwich Port. Owner of the property located at 16 Bank Street, Assessors Map 7, Parcel F2 in the RH1 zoning district. The applicant seeking a special permit and finding and/or in the alternative to change, alter, or extend non-conforming use to divide innkeeper's suite and create an additional rental unit pursuant to the Howard zoning bylaw 325-52 and 54B, Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Sections 6 and 10.
Okay, we will have voting on it. Let's see, Mr. Murphy, Mr. Armstrong, Mr. Donahue, Mr. Sullivan, and Mr. Beasley. Okay, Attorney Kroll, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Identify yourself for the record and then present your case, please.
Thank you. Attorney William Kroll from Harwich Port, and I have seated with me Peter Mackery, who is the principal of 16 Bank LLC, which owns the inn at the end of Bank Street Beach on the right-hand side, right on the water there. Not a project of great magnitude. It's going to result in changing 2 doors, if the board sees a way to granting the special permit. Thank you in advance for not requiring Mr. Mackery to spend a lot of money on a certified plot plan and building plans. So the petition basically boils down to the plans that were submitted that were labeled proposed and existing. So the existing innkeeper's suite back in 2016, 6 years ago, the owner at that time, not Mr. Mackery, but the owner at that time saw fit to enlarge the innkeeper's suite so that it would have a living room, bedroom, kitchen, laundry room, and they don't need as large an innkeeper's suite anymore, and they want to increase the income for the inn. So the proposed innkeeper's suite would have simply the bedroom and the kitchen and the bathroom, and no longer have a living room. And the new rental unit, guest unit 9, is as shown on the proposed plan, and there would be a 2-way door between it and the innkeeper's suite, and then there would be, as shown on the plan, they add exterior doors so the tenant customer could exit the unit on either side or enter it on either side to increase the rental income for the inn in these difficult COVID times. So our bylaw under 325-54B says that non-conforming uses, which is what this is down in that area in the RH1 zone, that the structure can be changed, which he's proposing to do, and the proposed change would be in conformity with, it's the same as the overall in use, so it's not something that he's got a residential structure and wants to rent a room all of a sudden. He's got an inn, he rents all kinds of rooms, and he's just it's going to comply or conform to the inn use of the property. I did confer with Mr. Eidman, the town planner, on this, and he's also a lawyer and has a lot of background in zoning. And I think this is one area that he wants to target, because he said that section of the bylaw is just very confusing. If you try to work your way through that paragraph, it's just back and forth, what? In his opinion, we meet all the criteria of 54B, because we have a non-conforming use in a non-conforming building, and it's the same use in the end as the in use that's non-conforming. So we're not going from a conforming to a non-conforming. So he had no issue with this, nor do I, and I think we meet the criteria of the bylaw in terms of it will not be a substantial detriment to the neighborhood. It's adding one small rental unit to the inn, and it will not cause any undue nuisance, hazard, or congestion in the neighborhood, and it will result in the same use as the inn use that's already in existence as a pre-existing non-conforming use. So, the petitioner requests that the board grant the special permit this evening to allow him to add one rental unit to his inn. Thank you.
Chris?
I have no questions.
Jamie?
No questions.
I just have a question with regard to rental unit. Is that where the office is? The
No.
rental unit, or is it around the corner?
It's the, there's the L-shaped building that backs up to the parking lot.
Yes.
That's where the innkeeper suite is. It's at the very rear of that, bordering, I don't know the address, but it's the Broders property right behind us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we do have a glowing letter of support from the Broders next door. I think you already have a copy of it.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I think it meets the requirements of 325-54B, the most important of which is the same use. But it's also not gonna, cause any of the noise, odor, whatever, issues that are spelled out there. I do think we can get away with just requiring the construction on the lot. You got lots of parking there, the vehicles can go onto the lot.
I'm sorry,
The construction vehicle would put a condition on it, they just park in your lot, you got tons of parking in
Oh,
there.
yeah.
So,
I
not
mean,
an
honestly,
issue,
it's,
yeah.
putting
Brian?
2 doors in, they'll be done in a day.
Okay.
We don't have any questions, but we're here today, this case is coming for us because you're turning in additional space in a rental unit, because we're not changing habitable space here. We're just reconfiguring a couple of walls and a door.
Right.
So all right.
Building commissioner referred it to you.
Realize that, okay. Thank you, I'm all set.
Dave?
Just one question. Scale of 0 to 10, how positive are you about the Marcus Freeman hiring at Notre Dame?
Very.
Are you optimistic?
Very. I was tired of Kelly.
Okay.
I think his ego outgrew the need to have him there. Yeah.
And he's made a move over at LSU that has been, have you seen the?
I think he's
the dance video?
He's gonna be either a square peg in a round hole or round hole, he's just not gonna cut it there. I'm guessing he'll be gone within 2 years.
I was thinking 3, but.
It was a dumb move on his part, but, this still, is the public hearing?
It's being recorded, it's being recorded.
So it's gonna be YouTube now, to Notre Dame.
There you go. I didn't go there, my daughter went.
Okay, well, we'll move on. Joe?
No questions.
All right, there's no one in the audience, so I will move to close the public hearing. Can I have a second, please?
So moved.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, public hearing's closed. I'll entertain a motion on the case.
All right, case number 2022-18, 16 Bank Street LLC. Attorney William Crowe representing the owner. It's located, like I say, at 16 Bank Street, map 7, parcel F2, and R8-1 zoning district. The applicant has been granted a special permit to alter and extend a non-conforming use to divide the innkeeper's suite and create an additional rental unit pursuant to the Howard zoning bylaw 325-52 and 54B, MGL Chapter 40A 6. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so, during the life of the project, all vehicles, construction vehicles shall be parked on the property and not on any public street or road. It is a condition of this approval that a violation of the terms and conditions of the special permit may be enforced as a violation of the Howard zoning bylaw pursuant to MGL Chapter 40A, Section 7, and Howard zoning bylaw, as these may be amended from time to time.
Can I have a second on that motion, please? Second from Mr. Armstrong. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Special permit granted. Good luck with your project, sir.
I will tell the board, since the meeting is closed, that,
Well, we're still being taped.
Let's make.
I understand that, it's just not, it's not a, one of those situations where I didn't realize the microphone was still on. One of my better variances was for this property. Right after Hurricane Bob, I got the variance from this board, which was, what, 20 years ago now? For the 2 units that are the closest to the beach there, that just stick out there by themselves.
Yeah, we call it the beach house.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, that was a fun one, and it's turned out to be, I'd love to stay there sometime, I'm not asking to, but it's a great spot.
What was your fee for this?
I expected that.
You wanna do a little part?
Yeah, we
Is it too late? Is it too late for that?
Yeah, I think it's too late.
Can I ask informally a question? It still confused me, do we fall within that particular, so the denial itself, I was confused with the beginning. Because back in the summertime, I socialized the concept that, hey, in the off-season, we'd like to do this, and I thought it was really only a Board of Health matter with respect to does the septic capacity handle it? And I understood our property already to be non-conforming, so did we go from a because it became an innkeeper suite some years ago, did it lose its status? Is that what happened?
Yeah, if you abandon it for more than 2 years.
I see. Okay, so you get a 2-year sort of.
Right, if they had done it a year and a half later, come back, said, oh, sorry, just kidding,
Gotcha.
it would have been okay.
Gotcha. Okay, so they got it right. Okay.
Right.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you for all your time and consideration this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Hope you have a good season.
Yeah, thanks very much. Come on down, have a cup of coffee. Please do.
Probably booked solid already, right?
It's coming along really well, yeah.
Good.
From what I've read, it's gonna be another busy summer.
I think it's gonna be a very busy season for.
May I ask how you're doing on help?
All of the Cape. That's one of the reasons that it's tough. I mean, it's, we're fortunate, we've got some carryover staff, but, you're having to increase rate of pay, up housing allowances on top of every other cost that's going on. But knock on wood, we're good, and we will have a couple J1s coming over as well to, help the situation. So we're looking good at this point.
Glad to hear it.
But thank you all.
Good luck.
Take care.
Night. Okay, new business. As you know, we had the training session, we were all there. I think it was, I hope everybody thought it was pretty worthwhile.
I thought it was excellent.
She's wonderful. And I think, you go to the general ones, they never focus on what you want them to focus. That's why Don Howell was always dinging me that I didn't send you folks for training, well, because the courses were lousy. But that really focused on the kinds of things that we'll face if we get another application. One of the things that came out of that was her comment about filing fees for 40Bs in particular. Our filing fee is $315. And if we get a big one, it's gonna be a lot of work for the town. So I sent you an email. I looked at the town of Hingham, which has about 6 or 7 40Bs pending currently. They do a lot of 40Bs. And then the town of Stowe because she represents them. And then just before I came out tonight, I looked at, where is it, Brookline, yes, Brookline. So let's see, Hingham charges $300 for the first, oh, no, I'm sorry, that's just a general, well, okay, let me talk just about comprehensive permits first. Hingham, where is it? Hingham charges $250 a unit for comprehensive permits. Stowe charges $500 plus $50 a unit. And Brookline charges $350 plus $50 per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. So
And
that's
we charge $315 flat?
$350 plus. $350 plus $50 for every 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. Now, to me, that's, you know, somebody's, Alicia or whoever's gonna have to do all that computation and get them to give her the gross floor area. My preference would be we charge the flat fee and then so much per unit. It's, I think administratively, just a lot
So much
easier.
easier.
Don't you agree?
So much easier to do it by unit.
Well, it doesn't matter to me, because I won't be doing it, you will.
I will, I don't wanna be doing square footage
Yeah.
calculations, yeah.
I don't know, is there general agreement we ought to raise the fees?
So we can raise the fees without going through town meeting?
We have the complete discretion, the board, to raise fees, set the fees under the bylaw.
Okay.
What's comparable to other towns on Cape Cod, considering that's our
I
geographic?
actually didn't look at the ones on Cape Cod.
Just
because
considering
we
the
have so
demographic
few
and
40Bs
costs
here.
and- Yeah,
I mean, that's why I looked at Hingham, they've got 6 or 7,
they have
10
Sandwich
maybe.
has a couple, don't they?
And Barnstable had 3, right? So
Yes.
maybe we should reach out, I mean, whatever, it doesn't matter to me.
I think Sandwich or Falmouth have some too.
Falmouth just has
Falmouth,
some, right?
yeah.
I mean, my feeling would be we ought to just charge whatever the flat fee is, $300 or $500, and then X per unit. That would be my recommendation.
That's fair.
Yeah,
All right, I'm gonna
Good with that.
move that we reset our comprehensive permit fee to $500 plus $50 per unit.
Wasn't there a suggestion to find out what towns on the Cape did?
I'd rather.
They may not have made the adjustment, and they'll follow us up. So it's potential we're leading back here. So it might be right to do Hingham or whoever. I was just curious.
I'd like to
whether-
do it tonight, just in case somebody comes in before we.
We can revise it again.
we can revise it next
Before
month.
we revise it, because we can always readjust it any meeting we want to.
I agree.
So my recommendation, or I'm gonna move that we charge $500 flat fee plus $50 per unit for all comprehensive permit
And that
projects.
model's, of the ones you presented, that's, the ones you talked about, Hingham, Brookline,
Stowe. That's,
Stowe.
I'm just reading, that's what Stowe does, 500
Stowe.
plus 50. So, second on the motion? Second from Brian, discussion? Agreement? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, so that will be our new comprehensive unit.
If we decide we wanna revise, I'm happy to do some research. I do compensation analysis as part of
Yeah,
my full-time job, so happy to look into that.
Okay. And now, we only charge $315 for the special permits and the variances. And Hingham charges $300 for the first 2,000 square feet, and then $100 for each additional 1,000 square feet or any part thereof. Now, again, you're getting into the square footage. Brookline charges, well, the same thing, $350 plus $50 per additional square foot.
Is that building square footage or habitable space square footage?
Gross floor area.
when was the last time these rates were changed? What are the dates on the effective date?
I don't know the ones that are current, I don't know how often they change them. And Hingham charges, I just said, let's see, Stowe, what does Stowe charge? Stowe charges $300 for the first 2,000, an additional $100 for each 1,000 square foot or any part thereof.
Right,
So they're all pretty consistent.
If someone's coming in front of us, all right, let's take tonight on 968, Route 28. They're asking for a change of the porch, which would have been, like 250 square feet. So we're charging strictly on whatever the project is they want to do, not the whole square footage of the house, correct? Like, for instance, if someone wants to take a screened-in porch and turn it into habitable space, and they've got a 25 or 3,000 square foot house, are we then imposing additional 2,000, an additional 1,000, or we strictly charging them based upon the additional, they don't qualify for any additional charges because it's
Right.
just a screen house?
Excellent point, and these towns don't clarify that. I think we should clarify it, that it would be the square footage of the project.
Right.
Because the little small porch, it's not fair to assess them on a whole square footage of the house, that's nuts.
Yeah, like,
And probably that's what they do.
like tonight
Project.
when the Widmere, singer came in front of us, you wouldn't have to apply for a permit for the whole complex based upon just want to put up a pergola.
Right, no, I think it should just be
You
the
know, I
project.
mean, that'd be,
Right.
that would have been $10,000, I mean.
Like on the tear down, and then the one that we continued, on that one, there's a lot of square footage, that's the whole project, not
Right.
the whole house. So they ought to pay because there's a lot more work, I think, for the Board of Health, the Conservation, whoever, to go through it. I mean, we're not paid, so it's nothing out of our hide that we were here 2 hours, except Alicia. She's gonna get paid for that time, so there is a cost to the town on these projects. So I'm thinking $315 flat fee is really not enough. We need to charge them a little more.
I was asking about when did we last set the rates? I mean, wage inflation, just say 2% a year, which is low.
I do know that we're pretty much on par with other towns on the Cape for, residential zoning applications. What a lot of other towns do is commercial ones cost more. But a lot of other towns are actually lower than us for residential, but much higher than us for commercial. Whatever you wanna do, it doesn't matter to me.
We get so few commercial.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I mean,
I'd hate to have a separate fee.
This is the first one that I can remember, except, those little bitty places out
Well, a
on,
lot of them.
Well, you had
do
Coachman
have
Inn.
By the
technically,
recycle.
They're mixed use, so you would,
I don't wanna make life difficult. I mean, I don't, maybe we just leave the $315. The bigger deal was the comprehensive permit, because that's gonna involve
I
a
just
lot of.
looked at Falmouth for their comprehensive fees. And for a 40B, it's $2,000 for a for-profit, it's $2,000 and $125 per unit, or nonprofit is $1,000 and $25 per
Okay,
unit.
Amy said we cannot do that.
Yeah, I didn't think.
It's not gonna cut the mustard. And I asked that question, and she said you can't do it. But what we can do is do it on a unit basis. She said that was okay. So, okay, maybe we'll just leave the $315 then, as it is. I'm okay with that. My bigger concern was the 40Bs, because of the time it's gonna take. Okay,
We can revisit that at any given time.
we can revisit it any meeting we want, and feel free, anybody bring it up if you look on the internet and come up with something, and anything, really, bring stuff up. The rules and regulations, this board never had them, should have had them, you're required to have them, but never had them until, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, whatever. We started talking about it, so I volunteered to put them together, and what I did was I went to a whole bunch of towns, printed them off, took a paragraph here, took stuff I liked and made them up. What I did with there are just a couple of minor changes outside of section 5.
Oh, I didn't read my
comprehensive
copy
permits.
with me. I did read it.
No, it's okay, I'm just explaining, we're not gonna vote on these tonight. But what I did, I went to Hingham's, and they were very extensive, but then I went to Stowe, because obviously Amy Quazell had written Stowe's, so I just lifted Stowe's, put them right into ours, made a few editorial changes. I like the way hers flowed. I don't think we need a separate document for them. She lets you stress that she likes that, but there's no reason to do that. And Hingham's are very detailed, but I think Hingham gets in a lot of litigation, so I just assume not use theirs, even though they've got 6 pending. So what I'd like you to do is, now that you understand where they're coming from, take a look at them, let me have any comments. I'm gonna have to ask Alicia to format them, because I am not worth a darn on
Happy to do that.
this brand-new Word. The old Word I was pretty good at, but not formatting. Secretary did that.
It looked like, other than section 5, you used track changes. And you were able to see where you changed things, so it's actually very clear.
Well, these aren't these changes. These are changes from like 2017 or something.
Yeah, they are. So you didn't make those.
They go back, yeah, I couldn't get rid of them. I don't know
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't.
You
how
have
to
to
get
go
rid
to,
of them.
you have to go to review
So, but you
and
just
accept the
added
changes.
5, is that what you did, or you
No, 5
edited
is-
5?
I edited 5. 5 is all new. That's the only one. The only other couple of small changes I made were, I said now, in addition, because Lisa's got it, that they have to now give us all of the plans and documents electronically. And I've added that to the 40B provisions too, because that's now on our application. And what else did I do? I did one other small,
So when they do that, electronically, then you need to then print them out? What happens, I
Well,
mean?
right now it's both. We get them physically and electronically.
so-
But we're moving to a new permitting system in the new fiscal year, in which case it will all be electronic. So we're trying to gradually get people used.
So then what do we get?
We'll cross that bridge when it happens, so I'm happy to print out whatever.
no, we're not, we'll require them to give us, just like we are
Yeah.
now, so we can get hard
Electronically
copies.
and, so
Yeah,
you're still gonna require both?
Electronically for the town, but we want hard copies.
Hard
So,
copies,
so,
yeah.
right, and you wanna put in there the hard copies, and I absolutely agree, need to be 11/17. Like, particularly in the site plans.
Yeah, so ideally we'll be getting both, but like I said, until we actually cross that bridge into the new system, it's hard for me to say what's actually
Now,
gonna happen.
now, Attorney Crowell and I came back on Freeman Street with, the paper size was 11/17, but the margins were still real big. It didn't help as far as reading the site plan.
Plans to scale on 11/17, so it may be the timing for him, he couldn't get in touch with the engineer to
Sure.
get the right.
I understand.
But I told him moving forward, we won't be accepting any smaller plans.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because,
isn't that the problem, though, with electronic plans, is that they print out at that size?
So when I get plans straight from an engineer or an architect,
Yeah.
they're scaled to print to scale on 11/17.
Oh, they are?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
we can have it.
right, but we'll still keep the requirement in the rules and regs
Yeah.
for the hard copies. Now, I had asked you to send us what agencies get a 40B when that comes in, and we're gonna have a real tight timeline, because we gotta get them out internally within 7 days of somebody filing a 40B. And she had 15 copies of everything. I think our current rules only call for 10 or 11. Do you know how many we'll need?
11
11's enough
for copies? Well,
for a 40B, when it's really gotta go to everybody in town.
I don't know, because we don't have a specific 40B application. Does the town have, do you?
We used to, I
Okay.
think. I don't know, I don't remember now, it's so long ago.
I'll touch base, Shayla was here for the last 40B, correct?
Yes.
I can touch base with Shayla, she's still in the building and very helpful.
The last one was the Habitat for Humanity out off of Route 28.
Yeah.
And I think the address might have been Route 28.
93 to 98, 93 to 96, Route 28?
Something like that, yes.
West Harwich.
Yeah, in West Harwich. Okay, well, that's great, and thanks, everybody.
Lisa, is it possible to get a copy of the fee schedule that, I think you keep it up there on the desk when people come in and they want to do something, you have it, there's a fee schedule.
For the building?
Yeah.
For all the building
For
fees?
everybody.
Yeah,
I'd like to have one of them, right?
yeah, I can add one to your packet next week,
All right.
next month.
That's good, thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody, for hanging in. It's late tonight, 9:26, but that was a good case, and they'll be back. So if they can work it out, that will be wonderful. No, I'm not, but, I mean, they're right next to each other, but we're not living there, so it's their problem. I will take a motion to close the meeting, or adjourn the meeting, I guess, adjourn the meeting. So moved, second. All in favor? Aye. All right, good night, all.
Thank you, Dave.